Over the years, starting from like 2010, that sort of time, everything in gaming has just got more and more expensive, and it's just gone downhill in terms of the quality you receive for the money you are paying. What made games really, really bad was the internet, because before the internet, you wouldn't have all these weekly updates and all this sort of stuff. You would have a game that would come out, be available in your local game shop or something like that. You'd go pick it up, and you would take it home and play it. And then the internet started, they started releasing updates for games all the time and all that sort of stuff. And it got to the point where games started with a model called live service. And that model is slowly getting worse and worse, to the point of a lot of the AAA companies getting involved with it. And essentially what that model does is releases 80% of the game they're making, with the other 20% releasing at some point after launch. Maybe even a year after the game actually releases. So you're paying £60 or £70 for this product, like $60, $70. And that's only for the standard edition, for you to not receive the full game that you're actually paying for. One of the worst companies for it is EA. They do it with a lot of their games, and is now being passed off to all these other different companies, and you have all these free-to-play games as well that are jumping in with all these battle passes, predatory microtransactions, and now Ubisoft are getting themselves involved as well, because they've been doing live service for a while now. And what makes it even worse is Assassin's Creed. It completely changed over the years. It's nothing like what it originally was. But now they're going to be releasing something they've said is going to be like a hub, and it's going to be called Assassin's Creed Infinity, or that's what people are aware of at the moment. And it's going to feature like probably games from the past and games for the future, all on this hub that you might have to pay for. There's going to be live service. And then you also have EA's new Battlefield game, like EA and DICE's new Battlefield 2042. That's going to be more live service than Battlefield 5. And Battlefield 5 flopped to the point of them abandoning it and focusing on 2042. So it's just getting worse and worse. And you've got these mobile games that are making billions. And whilst they're doing that, companies that are making console and PC games aren't making enough money. Because if you look at something, I believe Pokemon Go has just passed $5 billion in revenue over the 5 years as being available to play. So it like averages out to $1 billion per year that game is making. It was said that PUBG Mobile was making like $7 to maybe $9 million per day. And you also have Apex Legends, which is a $1 billion game now. It seems all these free-to-play, battle royale, battle pass, microtransaction sort of plagued games are doing the best in terms of money. And when people sit there and say, oh, these microtransactions are optional, you don't have to buy them, that is no longer good enough. People need to start standing up for the companies that are trying to abuse it, because it's getting worse and worse. The newest generation of gamers, like all the kids that are growing up playing games now, they're never going to experience games how people like me at the age of 27 did when I was a kid. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go to school, I'd come home, I'd have my dinner, I'd sit there, play games for a couple of hours, and I wouldn't be spending loads of my parents' money. I wouldn't sit there and be like, oh mum, can I buy this skin for £8? Can I load up Call of Duty Warzone and pay £24 to make my guy look like Rambo? Can I go and pay £100 and buy a skin for Valorant or anything like that? It wouldn't happen like that back then. You would go to the shop, pay your £40 or whatever if you're getting a game day one like brand new. You would whack it in your console, you would sit down and you would have hours and hours of fun with no extra money. But now you've got kids that are using their like parents' credit cards and stuff, and they're racking up like debt of like £15,000-20,000 and stuff because the parents aren't monitoring it, and the companies that are releasing the microtransactions are so predatory. They put all this shiny stuff out and they dangle the carrots on the sticks and they just encourage people to buy into them. But it's getting worse and worse with every new release. There's an MMO coming out from Amazon Games and they're going to be charging for fast travel. You've got an amiibo you can buy for a Zelda game on Nintendo or whatever, and that amiibo lets you fast travel from anywhere in the game, and if you don't have that amiibo that costs like £25, you can only fast travel from certain locations. And because there are people out there that will defend this sort of stuff, that's why it's this bad and why it's continuing to get worse. Look at Ubisoft, they're stopping focusing so much on AAA titles. They're going to be going out and making more free-to-play stuff, so they can whack all this microtransaction stuff into their games. The gaming industry is getting worse, it's going downhill, and it's just becoming a complete money fest for all these CEOs and all the investors and everything. They just want money. Fair enough, they have to make their money back on the budgets they've spent creating these games, but they don't need to do it in a way that they currently are. If you have a look at the Call of Duty store for Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War, you're looking at like probably 300 plus different bundles they've released for that now. And it's only been out, like between the both games, it's only been available for a couple of years. If you take a look at Sniper Ghost Warrior Contract 2, they released that game at the beginning of June 2021, and within like 3 weeks they had 22 different DLCs for that game, costing over double the cost of the actual game itself. The worst thing is, all of it is paid microtransactions. You don't ever really get skins that are rewarded for playing the game and having fun on the game that you've paid for. What skins will Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2 release for free? They won't. Every single thing is paid for. And it's not just the microtransactions that's bringing the industry down, it's the lack of creativity and care, passion, effort that's going into games. You look at games, look at Red Dead Redemption 2, released at the end of October in 2018. Yeah, it's got bugs and stuff in it, but it's got a load of content. You look at The Division 2, released back in March 2019. Yeah, it's got loads of bugs, they're not doing much with the game now, but it has a load of content. And the companies might be heavily focused on microtransactions. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is Rockstar. They absolutely love their shark cards and gold bars. But there's a lot of content in the game that players get for just purchasing the game. If you look at the games nowadays, Outriders released at the beginning of April, and yeah, it's not got microtransactions, but they have hardly any content in the game, so you're paying £60 for pretty much nothing. I mean, you can sit there and do the same stuff over and over again for hundreds and hundreds of hours, but what's the point? You're not getting anything for it. If you look at Borderlands 3, they've released a lot of stuff for that game over the last couple of years, and it keeps players interested. Look at Destiny 2, they release new seasons, they release new content, expansions and stuff, and it keeps players involved. If you take a look at Watch Dogs Legion, it took them, 9 months to release? I don't even know how long it was, I think it was closer to a year, to actually release the first bit of actual content for the season pass. And all these games get delays and they get pushed back time and time again, and they come out and they're broken. They come out to the point of being like Cyberpunk, where Sony are now putting stuff on their own store, saying if you have a base PS4, be careful buying this game because it just doesn't fucking work. There is so much wrong with Cyberpunk on the base PS4. But it's companies that will rush these games out, charge you top dollar for them, and not put any effort into the game itself. And I'm not saying the games that I mentioned in a good term, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Division 2, I'm not saying they're perfect at all. Red Dead Redemption 2 has bugs in it that are 2 years old. The Division 2 had 2 years of a life cycle, then the devs just moved on. They left like one small team working on it to make an entirely new game mode. They moved on to their next project, because that's what happens with these games now. You will have companies like People Can Fly. They'll release Outriders, they'll do a few patches here and there and take the piss to release them. They'll do small patches to let players know that they're still active on the game. But realistically, it's a skeleton crew, a B team, and all they're doing is just fixing that up whilst most of their developers are working on their new games. And it might not be the developers' fault. It might be the publishers, the investors, the CEOs, it might be the higher-ups. Like, there's loads of different people it could be. But at the end of the day, it's all about the game. The game gets released, people pay £60 for it, they start defending all of the problems in the game, and the developers and like every company involved with the game then knows they can get away with that sort of shit. So they continue to do it, and they get worse and worse, and they push boundaries. But there are some people out there that just don't care what a game company does, they will still praise it. It's an absolute disaster what's happening to this gaming industry. You have these mobile games that are making billions of dollars yearly, Even some console games are doing the same thing. Look at GTA 5. It's a huge example of how companies can take their players for granted. Everyone has been banging on about GTA 6 for the last couple of years probably, or something like that. Yet they won't release it because they know there's not as much money there as what there is with GTA 5. They made $800 million in 24 hours with the release of GTA 5. They then went on 2 days later to make $1 billion in 72 hours. 3 days of release, they had made $1 billion on GTA 5. They then get a huge community for the game. They start forcing or trying to force the shark card purchases. Oh, you want a yacht? You want a submarine? $6 million, please. Oh, you don't have enough? Here's a shark card. That's going to set you back £10, £20. They do it all the time. GTA 5 has gone through 3 generations of consoles, and I don't see Rockstar stopping there. If they didn't make as much money from their shark cards, they would have released the GTA 6 by now. And people are still guessing that GTA 6 is coming out in 4 years. For as long as GTA 5 does well, there's never going to be a GTA 6. People need to start realising that. People need to actually start becoming educated within this industry and knowing that it's all based on money. If you don't provide a company enough money, they're not going to sit there and take you for granted. They're going to fix their bugs. They're going to take their time with things because they're not making enough money to just move on to the next project. They'll release a game for £60. They'll keep a small team on there to patch it whilst they're working on their new release. It even happened with the Division 1. As soon as they made the Division 1 and released it, they started work on the Division 2. They knew they wanted to make a sequel. They knew the game would perform well, so they started making that sequel. And then they made enough money from the Division 2 to start working on 2 new titles, being a Star Wars game and an Avatar game. Because that's all these companies do. Indie games, some AA, they actually care. But when it comes to the top dogs, the AAA companies, they don't care about anything besides yachts and holidays. Look at the CEO of Activision. He's just taken a 50% salary cut, which is $875,000 he's losing out on per year because he doesn't care due to getting a bonus of $220 million or something like that. He doesn't need to give a shit about just under $1 million because he's getting like 200. So he doesn't have a care in the world for it. Some of these companies will have far too much money to know what's good and what's right. Even if you do screw them over financially, they're still going to carry on. They're still going to come back. Look at Amazon Games. They released Crucible, it flopped, it got cancelled, they lost loads of money on it. They went and started making New World to take the piss with microtransactions. You look at Square Enix, they lost like $50 or $60 million on Avengers. They then release Outriders, which is another game just as bad. And now, after Avengers losing 50-60 million, they're going to be publishing a Guardians of the Galaxy game. Some of these companies don't learn. Some will learn if you hit them where it hurts, which is their money. But it's all about standing up to these companies and telling them it's not right. EA charging £90 for you to play the game from your Xbox One to your Series X because you don't have a Series X right now, you're going to buy one in a couple of months. If you buy the game for £60 to get the standard, when you get your Series X, you can't play your game on it. Activision, if you buy the standard edition of a game, you can't play it on your Series X after playing on your Xbox One. You have to pay £10 for a next-gen upgrade. Games in general just charging £70 for the standard edition. They say they need the extra money. All they got to do is release a good game that people want to play, that doesn't take the piss out of the players. Then they're going to make all their profit. They're going to get praise from content creators. They're going to get free promotion from content creators. They're going to make their money. Games also lie about a lot of stuff. You look at Anthem, they say 7 years in the works. No, it was like 18 months. 5 years was pre-production of them just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, thinking of what to make. Fast and Furious Crossroads. They claim they spent 3 years making that game, probably spent about 6 months, and spent most of their budget on voice acting. You look at Cyberpunk, took what, like 8 years? Didn't even work like at all on the PlayStation 4. And I think it was the same, or like maybe not as bad, on the Xbox One. Stop letting these companies take advantage of you. Stand up for your money, whether you're fucking rich or not. At the end of the day, you need to stand up for the money that you own, and don't let these companies take advantage. I'm going to wrap the video up there. Let me know your thoughts and stuff, and add to it all in like discussions and everything in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. I hope you guys enjoyed it.